Welcome, everyone. Welcome back. Welcome back. We've got a great topic tonight. Before we begin, let me see who is with us this evening. I'd like to get a little roll call. If you guys would just chime on in. Let me see who's here this evening. Some thumbs, some hearts. All right. Now, if you're watching on YouTube, please hit the like button for this video. Hey, Prince, how you doing, brother? Hit the like button. And please subscribe to the channel. Very important. Very important. Now, I'd like to ask also, how's the sound, guys? Wa alaikum salam, Prince. How's my sound? Give me a comment. Let me know how my sound is, because I've got a lot to share this evening, and I want to make sure this comes out good. Okay, good. You can hear me okay? Fantastic. Wonderful. Tonight's topic, my thoughts on the Blood Brothers on Netflix. Okay, my thoughts on the Blood Brothers on Netflix. Ladies and gentlemen, Netflix has done it again. Hey, Carrie, how you doing? Great to have you with me. Peace be unto you as well. Netflix has done it again. Another superb documentary on the life of Malcolm X and Muhammad Ali and their close yet troubled relationship. It's a fantastic documentary. I want to shout out the production team. First of all, beginning with the book, because it's based on a book by two white authors, interestingly enough. Johnny Smith and Randy Roberts. You do see them in the production. They are quite prominent in the piece. Someone said, I enjoyed it as well as you. Yes. Yes, it was very good. It was very good, very informative. Okay. And what it tells me is that Netflix is realizing that there's quite a bit of benefit for them in engaging our history and our culture. The director Marcus A. Clark. Marcus A. Clark. Superb job, brother. And the producers, of course, the famous Kenya Burris and Jason Perez. So we want to give them a shout out, salute to them for this production, coming on the heels of the phenomenally successful Who Killed Malcolm X, still on Netflix, Emmy nominated. And that was such a winner for Netflix. In fact, I'm told it's the most watched docuseries they've ever produced, they've ever aired on their streaming service. So I'm very proud of that, and that is due to all of you guys out there who have shown so much support for it. As well, ladies and gentlemen, as you know, if you like what you're hearing, if there's something that has benefited you, if you've learned something new, please go ahead and look in the description box. It will tell you, how to support the brother, how to support the work that we do. We're going to bring you, I believe, some new information, and we're going to kind of flesh out some of the topics, some of the themes that were discussed in the documentary, and we're going to give you some historical background and also some analysis. So once again, I like to see the hearts and I like to see the thumbs up. Come on, guys, you're being stingy. Hook a brother up now. I need to see it. It's my water. All right, great. Fantastic. Now, so with that, let's talk about Muhammad Ali first off, okay? I was not old enough to remember Malcolm X. I was alive when he was alive, but I was a child. I was a toddler. However, I have very, very clear and fond recollections of Brother Muhammad Ali, the great Muhammad Ali. If you're anyone that's my age, my age group, Muhammad Ali was the hero of all of Black America. Okay, Muhammad Ali is a towering figure, huge cultural influence on the Black community, particularly in the 1970s. Yes, earlier, but I don't remember those times. I was just a child then. But the 1970s, Muhammad Ali and Howard Cosell. This is Howard Cosell. How many of y'all remember that? Ali, such a brilliant raconteur, incredibly humorous, funny man, quick mind. He would do these interviews with Howard Cosell and have us breaking up. But I recall every Saturday after the fight, okay, we couldn't afford to go see the pay-per-view or what have you. We had to wait until that Saturday afternoon, ABC Wide World of Sports. We already knew who won the fight, but we hadn't seen it yet. So I'm telling you, all of Black America would be sitting in front of their television set to see the champ, to see the great Muhammad Ali. It was a thrilling time, and we all identified with him, especially young Black boys. Okay, we all wanted to be tough like him, and it was a great time, and he was such a huge cultural influence. Salute to the great Muhammad Ali. Great documentary, brought back a lot of memories. And we're going to talk about his relationship with Malcolm, which began as a very tender relationship, a tight relationship. And because of the forces at play, they ultimately were ripped apart. They had their friendship torn to shreds, so to speak. And this is what the documentary brings out, how this happened, how the relationship developed, and how it ultimately, fell apart. So I want to talk about, some of the episodes along the way in their life, in their journey. Want to talk about the young Cassius Clay. You see a very interesting clip of young Cassius Clay talking about his name, and you'll see a reporter ask him, where did you get the name Cassius Marcellus Clay? Cassius Marcellus Clay. So it's a Roman name, right? It's an Italian name. Where do you get that name from? And you see the young brother, trying to do the best that he can. And he says, it's been in my family, all these generations, but I really don't know where it comes from. So that's what I like to discuss with you right now, where the name comes from, because that did come up in the series. Where does the name Cassius Clay come from? How did he get that name? Okay. Now, I want to share this with you. A lot of the material I'm going to share with you this evening comes from this book right here by Jonathan Eig. It's called simply Ali. Okay. Came out in 2017. It's won all kinds of awards. All right. And Jonathan Eig is a writer out of Chicago. And I like to think of him as my friend. I was consulted on this book when it was written. And in fact, I am in the acknowledgments. If you get the book, you'll see my name there. It is the first full-blown biography of Muhammad Ali, from birth to death. Okay, so there have been many books on Muhammad Ali. Obviously, Thomas Hauser is a very excellent book. Ishmael Reed. So much has been written about Muhammad Ali. Muhammad Ali at one time was the most famous man in the world. Think about that. Think about that. A young man, young black boy from Kentucky, went on to become the most well-known personality in the world. Go any place in the world and be recognized and honored and praised. The great Muhammad Ali. But you see the young man trying to give an account of where he got his name. And, that's what I'd like to share with you right now. And in fact, that is the opening chapter of this book, believe it or not. Okay, because that's a question a lot of people had. Now, it turns out that Cassius Clay is a descendant of one of the most prominent American statesmen and politicians of the 19th century. And of course, you've all heard this name in your social studies classes, the name Henry Clay. Henry Clay. Now, that's a very early clip of Muhammad Ali, Cassius Clay. I have to believe that sometime later in his life, he was informed that he has this a familial connection. He is a direct descendant of this great American statesman, Henry Clay. Let me tell you a little bit about him. Henry Clay Sr., he was born on April 12, 1777, and he died June 29th, 1852. He was an American attorney and statesman who represented Kentucky in both the U.S. Senate and House of Representatives. He was the 7th House Speaker as well as the 9th Secretary of State. Okay? Muhammad Ali is a descendant of one of this nation's Secretaries of State. Okay? Whether he knew that or not, I'm sure he must have found out later on. But, I think that is an incredible fact. We're all interconnected. We're all related. Also receiving electoral votes for president in the 1824, 1832, and 1844 presidential elections. So the great-great-grandfather of Muhammad Ali ran for president, and he helped found the National Republican Party and the Whig Party for his role in diffusing sectional crisis, meaning the impending war between the North and the South, especially like during the Compromise of 1850. He earned the appellation of the Great Compromiser and was part of the, quote, great triumvirate of congressmen along with fellow Whig Daniel Webster and John C. Calhoun. Henry Clay is a big figure in American history, folks. And if you don't know who he is, you should know who he is because you should know American history. You should know your history, okay? Henry Clay is a huge figure. He was anti-slavery, even though he owned slaves, like many of those early founders and leaders in the country. And he is the founder of the American Colonization Society. So it's not just that they, believed in eradicating slavery. They wanted to free the slaves so that they could ship them out of here back to Africa, their home continent. Okay, that's what they believed, the American Colonization Society. And of course, Abraham Lincoln, who admired and looked up to and took Henry Clay as, his political role model. He too was a colonizationist. He wanted to send black people back to Africa after they were made free. Okay, so The story goes like this. Henry Clay had a son, Henry Clay Jr. And we're going to show you where the name Cassius Clay comes from. Okay, but Henry Clay had a son named Henry Clay Jr. And Henry Clay Jr. had a slave by the name of John Henry Clay. And it is said by Jonathan Ige and other historians, and also according to family law. So the story that has come down amongst the black Clays in Kentucky is that John Henry Clay was either the son of Henry Clay, the statesman, the congressman, or his son Junior. Okay, but they say if you looked at pictures of them, he more resembles the old man. Okay, Henry Clay, John Henry Clay, with his so-called master, Henry Clay Jr., they went to Mexico and fought in the Spanish-American War, the Mexican-American War, I should say, the Mexican-American War. And at that time, the son Junior was killed in the war, and John Henry went back to Kentucky, and in time, he was able to get his freedom. All right. In 1870, he married a young woman named Priscilla, a marriage that ultimately, didn't work out. But he had a brother, okay, because John Henry Clay, he had 9 children, okay. In fact, let me backtrack. Priscilla, as I recall, is the wife of Herman Heaton Clay, who was his son. So pardon me on that. But John Henry Clay had 9 children. One of them was named Herman Heaton Clay. And another of his children was named Cassius Clay. Okay? So out of the 9 children of John Henry Clay was Herman Heaton Clay and Cassius Clay. Herman Heaton Clay is the grandfather of Muhammad Ali. And one of the new pieces of information that has come out in this new biography by Ige is that Muhammad Ali's grandfather murdered a man over a quarter. Okay? This was never known before. Ige found this out, okay, by digging through the records and what have you, that Herman Clay snatched a quarter from someone. He robbed someone of a quarter. And later that day, he and his brother Cassius saw a friend of this man who got robbed. This friend's name was Charles Dickey. And they had words. It looked like Dickey was trying to, perhaps get the quarter back, was coming to, pay back Herman for what he did, try to get the quarter back. And the long and the short of it is that Herman took out his .38 and killed him on the spot. Okay, killed him on the spot. So yes, Muhammad Ali's grandfather did some time for murder. Okay. Fortunately, he was able to get paroled, I think after about 6 years. He got married again, because he was married again, as I told you, to Priscilla. But he married another lady. And he had some children. And one of those children was Muhammad Ali's father, Cassius Clay Sr. Okay? Muhammad Ali's father, Cassius Clay Sr., who was born on November 11th, 1912, was named after two Cassius Clays, one black, one white. The black one was his uncle, the one who got into the beef with this man when he got killed. Okay? The other Clay, Cassius Marcellus Clay, was a cousin of the statesman Henry Clay. One of Henry Clay's cousins was a Kentucky state senator, a three-time Kentucky state senator, who was a lawyer. He was a planter, but he also was an abolitionist. And that is the original Cassius Clay, okay? The one who all the subsequent Clays were named after. He is a cousin of Henry Clay, and he was a Kentucky state senator. He was born October 19th, 1810, and he died July 22nd, 1903, okay? So, guys, that's where the name comes from. That's where the name comes from. Cassius Clay, the young Cassius Clay you saw in the documentary, he didn't know where that name came from, but that is where it comes from. He is a descendant of Henry Clay, and he is named after a very famous Kentucky abolitionist named Cassius Marcellus Clay. Please look these names up, okay? Look them up. They will, they will increase your knowledge, all right? And in fact, it's always a good idea to increase your reading, increase your engagement with study, with research. And it's just such a pleasant thing to be able to read these books and to increase our knowledge. And that's really what it's all about. Now, moving on to the next point, because I took some points from watching the documentary, and that's kind of how I wanted to develop tonight's talk. They didn't really have enough time to go into, this wasn't a biography on Malcolm, nor a full-blown biography on Muhammad Ali. So they can't develop, all that was going on in the background, all right? Just not enough time, 90 minutes or whatever, just not enough time. Of course, we saw Who Killed Malcolm X, the role that the police killing of Ronald Stokes had in Malcolm's relationship to the Nation of Islam, his starting to perceive some of the contradictions between their rhetoric and their kind of passive non-engagement policy, right? And so, you don't see all of that, but that's all going on in the background. That's the great thing about this documentary coming on the heels of Who Killed Malcolm X, because that series, gives you a lot of the context of how to understand this story. So, again, if you haven't already seen it, most of you already have, go back and watch Who Killed Malcolm X. It will give you a lot more of the background and the context of what was happening. Now, you have to keep in mind that during this time, the death talk directed at Malcolm has already begun. Okay? It's already begun. And the reason that Malcolm can feel so confident, okay, in visiting Muhammad Ali, because Muhammad Ali is the one who extended the invitation to them, Cassius Clay, I should say, to come and visit him down there in Miami, is because at this point, Muhammad Ali was not in the nation formally as of yet. Yes, he was, I would say, intellectually part of the nation, okay, but he wasn't formally part of the nation. And he couldn't be, because This would create a backlash against him, which it did when he finally announced, right? But he also had this huge fight coming up, and he didn't want to, upset that bag. He was trying to get that purse. He had worked hard to earn it. He was, undefeated up to that point, and things were high stakes at this point, very high stakes. But he wasn't formally in the Nation of Islam, and he wasn't seen to be the winner. So Elijah Muhammad, Northern Nation, no one really believed that this brash, loudmouth kid, right, was going to beat Sonny Liston, who was, who was brutal, who was a brutal fighter, mean, okay, mean and brutal, and no one believed that this kid had a chance, had a shot, okay. So the Nation of Islam it wasn't such a problem for Malcolm to visit with Cassius Clay at that time because he wasn't formally in the nation. But Malcolm, at this point, he was in what you call, he was in quarantine. He was in quarantine. Okay. So by this time, he was being boycotted by the Nation of Islam. He wasn't allowed to speak or talk to or engage anyone in the Nation of Islam. He was banned from visiting the mosque, okay? And this was the final point in a progression of, we could say, punishments that Elijah Muhammad was meting out to him for the statement that he made about the death of President Kennedy. One of the things I really liked about this documentary is that it put to rest this false narrative that the Nation of Islam has, been putting out there for years and continues to put out. We saw Nuri Muhammad on the Breakfast Club even repeat this lie again. And Farrakhan has, just as recently as 2015, repeated this lie that Malcolm was trying to get back in the nation after he left the nation. Okay? And the proof, their so-called proof, is they play that tape of Malcolm petitioning Elijah Muhammad, seeking forgiveness, and trying to, get back into favor with the nation, trying to get his position back. And he's very apologetic. They say, the NOI, they say that tape was made after Malcolm's break with the nation, March 8th, 1964. That is a false narrative. That is a straight up lie. And this documentary, put that story to rest, put that lie to rest. Okay. All of these tapes, and there weren't that many, and letters that Malcolm was writing to Elijah Muhammad during this period. Okay. It's not even clear that Elijah Muhammad even received these tapes or these letters. But these were written and produced at a time when Malcolm was still in the nation, but in the suspended period. Okay? So that's clear. That's a great thing that was brought out in the documentary, and I really appreciated that. The way things kind of played out, it went sort of like this. After Malcolm was sacked or silenced, okay, the Kennedy speech was December 1st, 1963. As December moved on, things got worse for Malcolm, okay? They got worse. At first, it was just 3 months. 3 months, I'm not going to allow you to speak for 3 months. But you can still, administer the mosque. You can still attend the mosque. Okay? That was the initial punishment. But then, as December moved on and Elijah was hearing more and more from his kids, and more of these malicious officials in Chicago were getting in his head, he starts to reach a point where he's going to sit Malcolm down for good. Not put him out, but just completely knock him down, strip him of all authority, and show him, who is the boss. I'm the boss. I'm the messenger of Allah. Okay? I'm the leader of this thing, not you, Malcolm. And so Elijah Muhammad is going to berate Malcolm. He berates him. By January 2nd, 1964, they have a phone call. Phone call between Elijah Muhammad and Malcolm. And this was recorded by the FBI. And Elijah Muhammad likens Malcolm's activities as starting a fire. You've lit this fire. And now look at the situation. And what does he mean by lighting a fire? Remember, Malcolm was going to go and preach the new doctrine to the flock. He was educating the ministers as to what the new doctrine was going to be, that a man's good deeds outweigh his bad deeds. Okay? Guys, if you like what you're hearing, let me see some hearts. Let me see some thumbs up if you're following me. Okay? Remember, in April of 1963, Malcolm visited Elijah Muhammad and asked him point blank, "Is it true, dear Holy Apostle? I hear these stories that there are these children and that they're your children," and so on and so forth. And Elijah Muhammad acknowledged it, right? He was very forthright and he said yes, And a friend of mine, he does this this Elijah Muhammad impression. He goes, "Yes, son. Yes, you always understood the prophecy. I must plant my seed in fertile soil." from the Spike Lee movie, right? I must plant my seed in fertile soil. Okay. But he confirmed it. Yes, those are my children. And, you understood the prophecy. When you read all of the transgressions of the prophets in the Bible, I have to fulfill all of that. So when you see David taking, Bathsheba, I am the fulfillment of that. When you see Lot lay down with his daughters, God forbid, I am the fulfillment of that. When you see Noah get drunk after the flood, and so on and so forth, right? So he goes through this, and Malcolm leaves that meeting in April, believing that he has Elijah's permission to preach the new doctrine that he developed with Wallace, that a prophet's good deeds outweigh his bad deeds. Because he was afraid that this scandal would destroy the greatest black organization that was ever built. At least in his mind, I would argue that the Garvey movement was, much more significant. But that's another issue. Malcolm left that meeting with Elijah in April of 64 with a completely different understanding than what Elijah had, because they weren't really addressing it. It was such a sensitive issue that they were kind of talking around it. So they left that meeting with two different understandings. So Malcolm goes back and he calls certain select ministers and officials and he says, "Look, this is our new doctrine. A prophet's good deeds outweigh his bad deeds." And he revealed the children of Elijah Muhammad by his secretaries. But the interesting thing about it is they already knew about it. These officials, these ministers, they already knew. Okay? Even Malcolm's older brother Wilford knew about these children. It seems as if Malcolm is the only one who didn't know. They already knew. And of course, what they did, these ministers and officials, they called Elijah Muhammad and threw Malcolm under the bus. They made it sound as if Malcolm now was trying to make a play against Elijah Muhammad, and that he was putting his personal business in the street. That was the charge against Malcolm. So by the time you get to January 2nd, 1964, Elijah Muhammad is, he doesn't trust Malcolm anymore, really. He doesn't want him in that high position anymore. He's still his greatest asset, but he doesn't want him in a position where he could ultimately challenge him. So he completely stripped Malcolm of all authority. And he, again, as I said, he appoints, a few days later, on January 5th, he appoints the minister of Newark that you saw in Who Killed Malcolm X, James 3X McGregor, who's also known as James Shabazz. He takes him and puts him in number 7 in Malcolm's own pulpit. Okay? Think about that. He takes James Shabazz and puts him in Malcolm's own pulpit. Malcolm ultimately, around this time, had to fly out to Phoenix for something of a dress down. Okay? There was a dress down or a kangaroo court. And he flew out to Phoenix, and Wallace was supposed to go with him. Wallace Muhammad, Elijah Muhammad's son. He was supposed to go as well because he was in trouble as well. However, Wallace had an excuse. He had recently gotten out of prison for draft evasion, and he was on probation. And he claimed he couldn't leave the state. And so Malcolm had to go for this dress down by himself before not only Elijah Muhammad, by the way, but the infamous John Ali and Raymond Sharif. And Elijah Muhammad, was hot, and he was giving it to Malcolm. You have started all of these fires. You've put my personal business out there in the public. You're trying to pollute the community. And Malcolm's position, Malcolm was very humble, very apologetic. But at the same time, Malcolm was trying to make the case as well that any time a Nation of Islam official, a minister or a captain, had gotten in trouble, they had the opportunity to address the charges before their own congregation. And that he was denied this. And so he argued his case. And Elijah Muhammad said, don't tell me about that. You go back and put out those fires that you started. Go back and put those fires out. Okay? And so Malcolm, went back. Malcolm, the nation has been his life. And he is loyal. And he, at the end of the day, is obedient. But his mind, his mind is racked. Because now he has nothing to do. He has nothing but time on his hands. And all he can do is think about, what is this situation? Where do I go from here? What kind of, what's my future look like? If I'm put out of the nation, okay, where's my income going to come from? He's got all these children coming. He's got 3 young girls. He's got 1 on the way. And so it's at this time that Muhammad Ali, Cassius Clay, reaches out to him and says, hey, brother, why don't you come on down to Miami? You and your wife, you'll be able to take a vacation. And it just so happened to be the anniversary, Malcolm and Betty's 6th anniversary. Come on down and relax. Just chill for a minute, and take your mind off things. And that's what they did. The night before they left, on the 14th, this is January 14th, Malcolm met with Alex Haley in a hotel right off there by JFK for 7 hours. 7 hours, pouring his heart out into his book, which will become the iconic autobiography of Malcolm X. Malcolm left the hotel at 2 o'clock in the morning, drove back to Queens, and then the next day, or that I guess later that day because it was already January 15th, he and Betty and the girls, they flew out to Miami. Muhammad Ali met them, at the airport. And by the way, that was recorded by the FBI. But at this point, the FBI didn't even know that Muhammad Ali was essentially, Nation of Islam. So they didn't even file the report until like the 21st of January. Okay. So Malcolm goes down there and he has a chance to relax. This is the first vacation he's ever had with his wife. He's taking pictures, he's swimming, he's doing all the things that you do when you're on a vacation, right? He even submitted like an article to a couple of black newspapers on his family. He took a picture, and that's where you see that very famous picture of Malcolm and Cassius Clay, and you see Sister Ilyasa sitting on Muhammad Ali's lap and whatever. Malcolm submitted that to a couple of black newspapers, Chicago Tribune, if I'm not mistaken, and Amsterdam News. And the gist of the article was Malcolm the family man. So already Malcolm is trying to, soften his public image. He may even be already thinking, that I've got to present myself to the public. I've got to, in a sense, reinvent myself. But he wants to soften his image. So he sends this article and these photographs to these newspapers. And this is noted by the Nation of Islam. People see, oh, okay. Because really, Malcolm is not really supposed to be engaged in the media. Okay. He's not speaking yet. He hasn't really given an interview, but he's given his article and whatever. This is kind of seen as a little disobedient. Okay. But they didn't say anything. Chicago didn't say anything. Elijah didn't say anything because of, again, Clay was going to get killed. Okay. And if Malcolm wants to be down there with that loudmouth kid, all right, and he gets killed, he loses his credibility. But we're not going to get close to the kid. All right, that was their position. You guys following me? So what happens is Betty goes back around January 19th. She goes back. And, Betty goes back. Takes the girls back. Malcolm stays down there for a few days. Right? Till about the 21st. She goes back to 19th. Malcolm stays down there until around the 21st. And he and Muhammad Ali, they go to New York. They go to New York and they go about town and still no one's saying anything. He's not speaking to the media. Muhammad Ali attended a Muslim event, okay, at the Rockland Palace, and he gave some words to the media, Muhammad Ali, okay, and now the press is taking, no, ho, what's Muhammad Ali doing with the black Muslims, okay? Is he going to become a Muslim? What's happening? And Muhammad Ali, he made some statements to the press. They recorded those statements, and this created a firestorm in his camp down there in Miami. All right. So he was there for a day or so. He went back to the camp. Malcolm stayed in New York. All right. And then when Muhammad Ali goes back down to, Cassius Clay. I keep calling Muhammad Ali. Cassius Clay goes back down to Miami. Hey, man. They're going apoplectic down there. They're going crazy. The promoter, a guy named Bill McDonald, he thinks he's going to lose his shirt because the whites are catching wind now that this guy is hanging with the Muslims. Is he a Muslim? Now, you have to understand, back in those days, the Nation of Islam was hated I mean, they were preaching that the white man was the devil. This man had a lot of money invested in the fight. They said that he had to make $800,000 just to break even. Just to break even. Now, the arena had 15,744 seats. Only half of them were filled at this time. Only half the seats were filled. And now this whiff of black Muslim is around Muhammad Ali. And this is creating a problem. So that when Malcolm finally appears, right, the day of the fight, this is totally unacceptable. Everyone is going crazy. All right. They're even considering canceling the fight. And so they reach a compromise. They say, look, if you stay in the background, Malcolm, get out of here. Just stay out of the limelight. We'll give you a prime seat at the fight. Seat 7, right up front. Okay. You'll be right there. Okay. Just give us a break. This is very explosive. This is very hot. And, you're a real problem down here. So Malcolm accepts that, obviously. And we see what happens in the documentary. Of course, Ali goes on, whoops the behind of Sonny Liston. At round 7, Liston can't get up. He can't go another round. And Ali becomes the heavyweight champion of the world. This is this is a sad story. This is a real sad story because these guys were close. It's not just Muhammad Ali, by the way. All of the young men in the nation modeled themselves after Malcolm. He was responsible. His person was responsible for most of them coming into the nation. They loved him. And it was really painful for everyone to see what was happening with Malcolm. Okay? It was very painful. But see, Malcolm, he does something now that causes a serious problem for the rank and file, is that he talks to the media. So they put the mic, right up in his face down there after the fight, after Muhammad Ali wins, and he starts giving comments, and he's I knew he would win, and he's a strong Muslim, blah blah blah. Hey, well, I thought Malcolm's not supposed to be talking to the media. Now he's in clear violation of the prohibition, right? He's in clear violation of the law that was laid down on him. And the way the rank and file saw it, they said, well, yeah, okay, Malcolm, when he was the minister, he could dish it out, but now he can't take it. Okay, Malcolm was very stern. Malcolm punished a lot of people in the nation. Yeah, he gave people time out. If he saw somebody smoking a cigarette, or he saw someone, talking to a woman inappropriately, or if he heard about some type of fornication or adultery, Malcolm would lay the law down. He had no problem doing that. You speak to all of the old timers who knew him. He was a very stern man, and he was a lawgiver and a law bringer, and he would bring the law down on you. But now that the law has been applied to him, he's disobeying. He's down in there. Now Muhammad Ali is the heavyweight champion of the world. And then he announces that he is, in fact, a black Muslim. Or he's a Muslim. Right? He's a follower of Elijah Muhammad. Now, the way the nation looks at it now, right? Muhammad Ali, Cassius Clay still at this time, he's their property. Okay? He's their property. He doesn't belong to Malcolm. But Malcolm, everywhere you see Muhammad Ali, you see Malcolm. Okay? And they have a problem with this. because these two men had their own independent followings. Are you following me? I mean, Malcolm was loved outside of the nation. Malcolm had activists and writers and intellectuals who loved him and who were waiting, really, for him to break away from the nation so that they could follow him, whatever his new direction is. And of course, Muhammad Ali now is the heavyweight champion of the world. But then this is where it really gets deep. This is where it really becomes interesting and a big problem for the nation. Because after the fight, Muhammad Ali, or Cassius Clay, he goes to Chicago the next day to the Savior's Day, all right, announces well, of course, it's announced at the Savior's Day that he is now part of the nation. You saw that clip of Elijah Muhammad, and Elijah said, no, Allah and myself, we said, no, when they thought they were going to beat up that pretty face, but Allah and myself said, no. You saw that, right? That was the Savior's Day. All right, February 26, 1964. So he belongs to the nation. He's Nation of Islam property. But he's still, at this point, very close to Malcolm. He's still very close to Malcolm. And even though he voiced some concerns to Jim Brown at the Hampton Hotel, right? By the way, I thought that was fantastic color footage of the Hampton Hotel. They talked about he was eating ice cream. Well, there was a moment when Jim Brown and Muhammad Ali were by themselves, maybe in another room. And this is recounted in Jim Brown's book, where Malcolm told Jim Brown, that, hey, Malcolm he's in trouble. And I don't know if I'm going to be able to follow him, or I don't still have a relationship with him. Words to that effect. Okay. But he loved Malcolm. He loved him like a big brother. He really did. And he was really attached to him. And he wanted to share his success with his brother. And that's exactly what he did. After the Savior's Day, his brother Rudy, and by the way, let me just say this, Rudy or Rahman, he went everywhere with Muhammad Ali. All right. Malcolm, Rahman, and Muhammad Ali, or at that time Cassius Clay, they all prayed together before the fight. Okay. They prayed together before the fight. So Rahman was a good find. He was a good catch for this documentary. A good get, I should say. Because he was there every step of the way. But I want to deal with something that Rahman said in Blood Brothers. Because he said something that I didn't like. And I'm going to address that in a moment. But yeah. Rahman, Muhammad Ali, they go to New York. They drive to New York. All right, March 1st, around there. During this time, he gets 2 3-room suites at the Teresa Hotel. And the first person he calls is Malcolm. All right. And Malcolm, of course, in the state that he's in, he's persona non grata in the nation. There's all of this death talk swirling around him. All right. And he's at this point, he's at a crossroads. I believe his thinking is, and this kind of came out, Zahir Ali kind of made this point too, that perhaps Ali could be a chip to help him get reinstated. Okay. This was kind of like his last chance, his last opportunity, right? Like, in other words, because I helped inspire the champ, right? I was his spiritual mentor and his guide and his support, and I helped him win the heavyweight championship of the world. which has brought so much acclaim to the Nation of Islam that this would translate into some type of goodwill, you know what I mean? And we'll coming together, Ali and Malcolm will come in together, like a powerhouse duo. But the nation was having none of that. In fact, they were already planning to replace Malcolm with Muhammad Ali. And that's exactly what happened. Once they got rid of Malcolm, Muhammad Ali became the star power for the Nation of Islam. And you see that even, in the wake of Malcolm's assassination, right, it all becomes now about Muhammad Ali, the champ, right? He becomes now the charismatic spokesman and minister and celebrity Muslim. It all becomes Muhammad Ali now. And he's very loyal. And he's very young. He's very young as well. They get him his first wife, Sonji Roy, which was a disaster. But that's a different story for a different time. By March 4th, you see that clip in the documentary of both Malcolm and Rahman or Rudy and Muhammad Ali outside of the United Nations. They toured the United Nations for a couple of hours and they were introduced to all of the diplomats. I mean, this man, by the way, at this time, March 4th, he's still Cassius Clay. He had not received his Muslim name yet. How that went down is this. Elijah Muhammad produced a audio recording, a talk that he would play, on radio stations throughout America. And what happened was, on this particular day, this was March 6, 1964. Keep this in mind. Malcolm left the nation on March 8th. Okay? As late as March 6th, 1964, Malcolm was prepared to work it out in the nation. Okay? Yes, he knew that Elijah Muhammad was corrupt. Yes, he knew that Chicago was corrupt. But his thinking was, there'll be a change in leadership at some point. The old man will die at some point. Perhaps Wallace, who's an Orthodox Sunni Muslim at this point, perhaps he will take the leadership and convert it into, a genuinely Islamic organization and get rid of all of this white man's the devil and its weird theology and stuff, right? So Malcolm's thinking was, this is a powerful organization and it should be saved. And if I can hang around long enough, if I can somehow just be reinstated and just kind of lay low and let things, sort themselves out, perhaps we can, save this thing. So as late as March 6th, remember they were at the UN, the 4th, and they're going around, you see the footage, right? In the news media and everything like that. And Elijah's saying, oh, and by the way, one more thing. One of the local newspapers reported that perhaps Muhammad Ali and Malcolm X will join ranks and start a new organization. That was it. Okay? All bets were off now. Now things go into an emergency phase in Chicago. We've got to separate Malcolm and Muhammad Ali. Okay? This is going long enough. right? Because they knew that was a threat. That was a real threat. And that article, who knows? Maybe it was planted by the FBI. We don't know that. These types of stories, we got to do more research. I have to go back and see who wrote that story. Okay? But these are the kind of stories they were planting. At that point, Elijah Muhammad issued a recorded talk on WWRL. That was a radio station in New York. WWRL. And in this recorded talk, he said, "This name Clay has no divine meaning. I hope he will accept being called by a better name. Muhammad Ali is what I will give him, as long as he believes in Allah and follows me." Now, let me tell you something. Malcolm heard that. He heard that on the radio. In fact, in all the history books talk about a speeding ticket that Malcolm received in New York. You know how he received that speeding ticket? When he heard that, the brothers who were in the car with him, they record that he said, he's only saying, he said, that's a political move. That's what Malcolm said. That's a political move. He only did it to prevent him from coming with me, meaning Muhammad Ali. He only did it to prevent Muhammad Ali from coming with me. So he hit the gas to get to the Teresa before Muhammad heard this announcement that he was being given this name, this divine name, and this and that. But Malcolm got pulled over for a speeding ticket, and he didn't make it. And by the time he got there, Muhammad Ali had already heard through this recording that his new name was Muhammad Ali. Okay? So the point I'm getting at here, ladies and gentlemen, is that when that happened, Malcolm knew the jig was up. Okay? It's over. Okay? I'm never coming back in the nation. It's very clear that without Muhammad Ali, I have no more cards to play. It's over. And on March 8th, he went to the home of the New York Times reporter, M.S. Handler, Mike Handler. His wife was there, and he gave Handler a statement. And that statement was that he was breaking with the Nation of Islam, and he was going to form the Muslim Mosque Incorporated. So much history here, so much to unpack. Let's go back to the statement of Rahman, when he called Malcolm a fool. To say that about Elijah, that's a fool. That's just or foolish, or he called him a fool. But brothers and sisters, let me tell you something. I take umbrage with that. Okay? Not the documentary. I think it's important that you hear from Rahman. But to call Malcolm a fool is, in my judgment, out of order. Why? Because Malcolm didn't expose Elijah's faults and his dirty linen until after his first journey to Africa. When he broke from the nation, he didn't dog the nation. He didn't say Elijah Muhammad is a fraud. The man's got babies all over the place. He didn't do that. When he gave a formal press conference on March 12th, he said, I credit Mr. Muhammad for all that I am, all that I know, and so on and so forth, right? I'm still a Muslim, okay? And so he extended the olive branch to the nation. Even though they were talking about murdering him, even though going back to that February, they had sent Luqman to wire his car to blow him up, he could still be magnanimous enough to say, okay, I credit him with, all that I am and all that I know. And I think that I can better implement his program, Elijah Muhammad's program, outside of the nation. That's how he went out. He didn't go out blasting Rahman. Okay? He didn't go out blasting. It's only after he came back from Africa and they were throwing him out of his house, okay, that he exposed, because that's the only card he had left to play. That's the only card he had left to play. Now, you know why Rahman calls that foolish? The man made you famous. The man put you on, okay? Because that's the street code. The street code is, look, man, the street code is what Melchizedek said. Melchizedek Shabazz, the guy in the FOI uniform, all right? That Elijah Muhammad was a messenger. And when the UPS man comes and delivers the message, you don't care what goes on in that man's life, right? He's a messenger. He delivers the message. What goes on in his personal business, that has nothing to do with you. Isn't that what he said? But see, that's not how Malcolm saw it. Malcolm saw it as a Muslim is supposed to see it. That when you claim to be a messenger of God, that doesn't mean that you just deliver the message. That doesn't mean you're just like a carrier. It means you're supposed to embody that message. Okay? You're supposed to be about it. Right? You're supposed to be about what you preach. And Elijah Muhammad, in that respect, was a complete hypocrite. Man, even Elijah Muhammad used to, at times, even eat bacon. Okay? He's supposed to be a Muslim. He would eat bacon. That's recorded. Okay? It was one big a fraud. That's how Malcolm, at the end, characterized the Nation of Islam. He said he's a faker. That's what he said. I'm just telling you what he said. And Malcolm went there, not because he's foolish, not because he's a fool, but because he's a man of integrity, right? He's a man who is honest and tell the people the truth. And he felt the burden of his role and having built this organization, all right? That he, at the end, told Gordon Parks, he said, brother, it was a bad scene. It was a bad scene. Are you guys hearing me? I know I've been a little long tonight. I'm going to wrap it up. So Rahman calling Malcolm a fool. You know why? Because according to the street code, Malcolm was just supposed to shut his mouth and go away. Right? He's not supposed to go out there and quote unquote snitch and rat on the man and put all his business out there. But Malcolm was like, this man presents himself as the messenger of God, and he's trying to touch every little cutie pie that walks in front of him. He's got babies all over the place that he's not maintaining. He's got women suing him for child support. He's a messenger of God. No, it's a complete hoax. It's a fraud. And he did it based on principle, and he knew what the result would be. And he said it. If someone had come to me saying what I'm saying about this man, he said, I would kill him myself. Didn't he say that? On February 15th, right after his home was firebombed, he said, I've never done anything for which I wasn't prepared to face the consequences. So he knew how incendiary and how explosive what he was saying was. He knew what it was. But according to Rahman, he's foolish because he shouldn't have exposed this corruption and this hypocrisy. He's just supposed to keep his mouth shut and keep it pushing. And Malcolm wasn't that kind of man. He just wasn't that kind of man. One of the things that I'm learning as I'm writing this story about Laura is that this played very heavily in Malcolm's psychology, okay? That he had misled that young woman, okay? That he had turned her out in a sense. And it haunted him because, as you'll see in the article, once it's published, she really, really was out there. I mean, just really off the chain. And he blamed himself for that. So when he sees all of these young women end up in this condition, it bothers him. And it's a throwback, right, to Laura and what happened to her. And Malcolm loved women. Yeah, he was hard on women. That's another issue. But he was very protective of women. And he loved women. And he felt that, you know, this organization, which is supposed to be a Muslim organization, should be protecting our young girls, not preying on them. Okay? And this goes back to what we were talking about with the so-called conscious community. All right? It's just in many instances, an excuse to get girls, to get women. All right? And Malcolm said, man, this is what it is. If this is what it is, then I'm going to tell the world that this is what it is. It's not holy. It's not divine. It's not righteous. It's an apparatus that lends itself to preying on young girls and women. And he knew what the price would be. So, no, Rahman, you more than anyone should know what Malcolm was thinking, because you have had a first-hand seat at the corruption. You saw your own brother get robbed blind by Herbert Muhammad and that crew in Chicago. And you were robbed blind. So no, Malcolm is standing up for what's right. Okay? And so I will never let anyone call him a fool. And Melchizedek, you out of pocket. What kind of messenger are you following where he's preaching righteousness to the people, okay, and living in the gutter as a human being? No, you can't. You can't have it. You can't have it like that. So, and I'm not going to let you have it like that. So that's why I talk the way that I talk. So with that, brothers and sisters, I'm going to bring the talk to a close. Those were my thoughts about the documentary. I thought it was very tender to have Sister Ilyasa, the daughter of Malcolm, and Sister Miriam, the daughter of Muhammad Ali, and one of Muhammad Ali's older daughters. I thought that was very sweet, very tender, and I thought that it had a nice feel to it. And it's an important work. I'm glad it was done. And I'm salute again to all of the producers and directors who worked on this. It just adds to our body of knowledge. I'm going to bring tonight's talk to a close. I've gone a little long, but if you enjoyed tonight's talk this evening, I should say, please go ahead and hit the Cash App, hit the Venmo right there in the description box. It really does help out. I hope you all have enjoyed tonight's talk. If you have, let me see some hearts. Let me see some thumbs up. I hope we've broken it down a little bit for you this evening. So with that, let's call it a night, and I'll see you next time, okay?